on the day. We've spliced it together the best we can. Apologies though for the video out of sync with the sound and for bits getting cut off. Anyway, enjoy the video, the interview, and do post your comments and let us know what you think. Hiya John, how are you?
Hello, good, thank you. Yourself?
Excellent, good to see you. As every week, we are going out live on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Periscope, on Twitter. You can ask us comments live here. We can see them all as you ask. So do ask them, and we'll get John to cover them off. So, firstly, John, the Channel Islands air search. Where are the Channel Islands?
Well, there's a little bay called the Bay of St. Malo, but people probably know us better by being south of the UK. There's a group of 4 or 5 islands, 2 large ones, Guernsey, and the one we don't talk about, Jersey. And it's situated in a really lovely area. So you can see on that sort of map, you've got sort of France off to the right, and there are close neighbours. 25 miles, and you can be having lunch in Dillette in sort of half an hour in a reasonable boat. Sadly not at the moment with COVID. The UK is a good 60 miles sort of further north of us, though.
Okay.
But we're the centre island in amongst the Channel Islands themselves.
Gotcha, amazing. And so you're, as an operation, you're then working with the French rescue authorities, the English rescue authorities, and the Channel Island rescue authorities. Is that what happens?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we look after an area of about 4,000 square miles. So we can be called on by Cross Joburg, which is in the top right of the screen there, and so running down to Brest, which is Cross Corsen.
I found this image on your website. So that kind of gives people that's the UK on
that's it.
The north end there, is it?
Yes, that's right.
Let's look at that a bit bigger. Talk us through that. That's your range with the plane, or the last plane certainly was.
The timings you see on the screen there are actually the times from call out to get to that particular position. So when the call out goes off.
John, for people who missed this, what we were talking about just there was your range. And so we were looking at, here's from where you can, your from Page, you're 50 minutes, just over 50 minutes to the coast of France, and just 1 hour to the UK.
That's it, absolutely.
So what I was saying was, well, let's go back. What is it? So tell me about your aircraft. Let's bring up a picture of it here.
Okay, well, in the dark there. We've got a brand new Britten Norman Islander, and they've been building them for just over 50 years now, and they still have them on the production line. So this one is literally just flown 100 hours in total time, but it's been built specifically for us. It's got a lot of really good roll kit on board and the sort of engines we like, and painted a different color to the previous aircraft. So we've gone for more internationally recognized colors for a search and rescue asset.
You had a previous plane. I saw something in the news about it, 2013. Is that right?
Like that. Yes, that's right. Yes, there was an unfortunate incident which the crew all walked away from without any scratches, which is very good.
Which is amazing. And so this is the replacement coming in.
It is, yes, absolutely. We've been using her now since probably March this year, and she's provided a really stable, really smooth platform for us to work from.
Excellent. So what happens? Why do you get paid? What do you do? Why do you guys go out?
Yeah, you sort of said it a bit in your title. We go out as the lifeboats, eyes in the skies. As a landmass, we're not very big. I mean, Guernsey itself is 25 square miles. It doesn't take a huge amount of time to sort of whiz around there. But we've also got 4,000 square miles of sea and a very popular area for people who like to go boating, with the coastline of France being very close and lots of little islands around the area. Yeah, it's an idyllic spot for people to go sailing or go off in their ribs or their motor cruisers. Not so much this year, but there's also a lot of people out there who enjoy paddleboarding and kayaking and adventures, lots of sea swimming as well.
And so, talk me through a call out. How do you are the team staged anywhere? Are they at home?
Yeah, we are all volunteers. We're all sort of have our own sort of day-to-day jobs to do. I take photographs. I've got one who's an insurance broker. We've got a few pilots for the various airlines over here. So people come from all over the place. We just look for an enthusiasm to sort of be part of the team, and a willingness to sort of take part in the training. But from the call out, and we used the Everbridge system, which our local government subscribed to, and we sort of form part of that. So we get called out via that, and nothing is really more than 10 minutes away from the airport over here. As I say, the island's 25 square miles, 7 miles by 5 miles, in a bit of a triangle. So getting here is quite quick. If it's a nighttime chat, we have to wait for the fire brigade and we have to wait for the air traffic in both the islands to come in and activate the control zone. But during the daytime, we can leave pretty much as soon as we're ready with the aircraft.
And so, imagine this picture now: a team are arriving, or the crew are arriving. What makes up the complement of the crew?
We take 5 on board. It's a single crew aircraft, so just one pilot.
Yeah.
The person sitting next to him has a little bit of training in working with the checklists to help the pilot. So he'll read out the checklist, and the pilot will confirm what he's doing. Behind him is what we call the search director. Now he has 2 computers in there, one which has some mapping software and one which has the radar, and they can be swapped around. So the one you can see with the map on at the moment can also show the feed from the thermal camera that's sitting underneath the nose of the aircraft.
And so I think tell me about that camera now. I think I've got a picture here of one of the older planes.
Yeah, that's the Inframetrics Mark III, Quantum Mark III that we had. We've now sort of progressed, and we're using a Westcam MX10, which is sort of a few generations beyond this one in its stability and the amount of information it gives. I mean, one of the nicest bits about it's got an internal management unit, so it tells you the distance, the height, and the exact location of what you're looking at.
Got you. So for people who are just listening on audio, they can picture it's like a ball underneath the sphere underneath the aircraft.
Yes,
and it'll rotate around. It can move up and down, and then you've got the multiple cameras in it for day and night.
Yes, absolutely. So it's got infrared, it's got full color, and it's got what they call a low light camera as well.
So if I'm do you call them the search manager behind the pilot?
The search director, yeah.
The search director. They're able to look at that camera. What's the zoom like on that? What are they?
It's difficult to quantify. It says it sort of does a 300 times zoom. Now that's in their terms, but we can sort of zoom right into people a mile away and sort of pretty much fill the screen with them.
So I think I've again off from your website here, an example of a FLIR image of a.
That's it. So down at the bottom right of there, you can see the distance. I mean, that one was probably quite close, just under half a mile away.
And so you're out there. What's your brief? We've turned up at the base. What information are you told? What are you asked to do?
We're given a little bit of information on the Everbridge message, so we know whether it's going to be a land-based search or a sea-based search, and who's looking after us, whether it's the French or it's Jersey or it's Guernsey. Mm-hmm. So we have some idea what we're going to be letting ourselves into when we get to the airfield. The search director will then call the Coast Guard and get much more detail out of him, so much more sort of precise areas they actually want us to search. While the rest of the crew just get ready, the pilot will do a pre-flight on the aircraft, and then we'll roll the aircraft out ready to go.
And you've a couple of things like yellow or red status, is that?
Yeah, so the yellow status is they're not quite, I say not quite sure. They'd like us to be ready just in case they need us. Mm-hmm. The red one is we get there and we sort of get airborne as quickly as we possibly can. Okay.
And so the plane gets, what's the steps of that? The plane gets rolled out of the hangar. Yep. The person we were talking there about, the person sitting beside the pilot here, I guess in the right-hand seat, is it?
Yes.
They're going through the checklists. What's the search director doing at that point?
He's probably starting to sort of plot the search patterns on the software. Now his role uses some marine software. It's called C-Pro by Euronav. And okay. I think it's used by the Coast Guard as well. And one of the things reason we bought it, it had a very good method of plotting a search pattern very quickly. You basically sort of give it a start point and a stop point, and it lays the pattern out. And you can then edit. You can then edit with track length and track width.
Gotcha. Okay. And so is that pattern sent up to the pilot, or?
Yep. If you at the top of the screen there, you can see a small square box in front of the pilot.
Yes.
That one there, that's it. That's basically just a repeater, a marine repeater. But what it will do, it will give him a distance to go to the waypoint and a cross-track error, as well as a course to steer. Excellent. So he can actually fly a very, very precise course with that.
So our course directors doing that, they're planning the pattern. I assume, are they navigating as well, or is that elsewhere?
Only in the respect that they're making sure that the pilot is following the search pattern on his map. But they're also communicating with whoever's tasked us to go out on that particular search.
Okay, so they're doing the communications. You're all on headsets with internal comms. Yes. Yeah. So when I come back a little bit further in the plane, and these are great photos for everyone to see. I think the audio cut there earlier, I was thanking Thierry for the idea of this, of putting in photos when we're talking through it. So if you are listening to the podcast, jump on the YouTube version if you'd like to see any of the visuals. So what's this seat? We're back again. We can see here the pilot. We can see the person sitting beside the pilot. We've seen the checklist. We can see the search director. And now another part back in the plane. What are we looking at?
That's it. So we've got what we call the P5 seat, which is where the flare operator sits. So the bottom screen is the feed directly from the camera. And the screen above holds a different sort of mapping software. It's the CartNav software, or the Ames HD by CartNav. And I have to say, it's one of the best bit of mapping software I've ever come across. It's so responsive to work with. You can do so much with it. You can put any form of mapping or charts on it that you want to. In this case, we've got an Admiralty chart on it, and we've overlaid it with a Monch grid.
And what are they doing in that seat?
So basically, they just control the camera. And you can control the camera from the hand controller that comes with it, or you can control it with the mapping software. So if you can see an AIS target on that screen, you can click on it and the camera will swing round onto it.
Excellent. So you can touch the map on the screen, and the camera zooms in on that point and gives you a visual, which is fantastic. So does that overlay with radar or anything as well, or?
No, the radar's a separate unit, and at the moment we've been looking at trying to work out whether it will integrate with it. But the radar we use doesn't have the right signal to go to our software to be able to translate the information.
Gotcha. Okay.
But probably the more sophisticated radars are no problem at all with that software. So
I think we've covered 4 roles. Who's the 5th?
The chap in the left-hand seat next to the flare operator. So he is basically one of our observers. So pilot, search director, and 3 observers.
Yep.
So front right, and rear left. The rear left has got a bubble window he can look out of, so he can look right underneath the aircraft. And forward of him, he also has a flare chute. So we carry smoke flares for daytime, and they have a burn of about 3 minutes. So if we're out at sea, and we see something we want to come back to so relatively easily, we can just fly a pattern and drop that smoke at the right point.
How do they get dropped out? There's a chute.
There's a flare. There's a tube built into the floor of the aircraft, and it's basically sort of the flare hangs there on a pin, and there's a plunger, and you just push it down and it ignites it and drops the flare.
Oh, excellent! So they're preloaded under the aircraft.
No, we load them manually as we need them.
From inside.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
And at night time we carry an LED strobe, which is not only does it flash SOS in red, which is visible from 6 to 10 kilometers, but it also has infrared LEDs in there, so we can see it with the thermal camera as well.
Wow, brilliant! Yeah, it sounds excellent. And so what's your mission would be? I mean, what are the typical missions? Missing person, missing ship, vessel sinking, get over and get a visual. What kind of tasks are you doing?
It could be all sorts. I mean, more and more our searches are becoming land-based now, with what they call people of concern. but we still do quite a lot of marine work. So we've had a ditched aircraft at the beginning of last year. We've had reports of aircraft crashing. It wasn't, but they weren't. It was just somebody misinterpreted what they saw. Just recently, we had what we thought were possible immigrants. A vessel had seen an overloaded boat, so we went looking for that. So it could be anything, anything. Wherever there's a life in danger, then we can be called out to it.
Yeah. Have you seen many of the sort of immigrant vessels they're starting to appear in the news? You're just probably out of the way a little bit of that, are you? That have to be off course.
Yeah, very much so. Thankfully, no. But we are aware that that's a possibility that may well happen, because we are really very close to the French coast. Jersey's even closer. It's only about 20 miles.
Okay.
They just don't understand the tidal streams around there, unfortunately.
And what's it like working? I mean, in the difference with working with the French RCCs or the HM Coast Guard or Jersey or Guernsey. What are there differences in how they'd run missions?
Maybe a little bit. I mean, obviously you've got the language, but they, the French do speak English for us, which is sort of very helpful. And they are very efficient. I mean, we've been over to the Coast Guard centres in France, and they're amazing places to see. The amount of equipment they've got there, sort of monitoring all the shipping going on. Yeah, it's becoming very, very sophisticated. But no, they understand how we work, and we understand how they work, and the two systems mesh together very, very, very nicely.
When you go out to do a search, then, and you're coming up with that search pattern, so the computer probably does a lot of maybe that spacing and stuff. But what are you taking into account in the differences if you're looking for a person in the water or a vessel, or what are the differences in how you operate?
With our waters, we've got a 10-meter tidal difference, so it's quite considerable, and we also have a tidal flow which can reach 6 or 7 knots on the extreme. So things can happen very, very fast out there. So you have to bear in mind what the wind is doing and what the tides are doing when you actually sort of create your search pattern, which side of it is the best side to start, bearing in mind what the sun is doing with the reflection on the water when you're looking out of the window as well. So the search director's got to sort of bring all these sort of things into mind to be able to cover the area as effectively as possible.
And so do you fly at a different height if it's a larger object than a smaller object? I mean, how does that all work? How do you determine that?
Yeah, well, the person in the water, we can go down to about 250 feet if it's a live shout. The current SERA regulations brought in by CAA and EASA sort of make it more difficult to train below 500 feet. But we do have a derogation from that, so we can go down to 100 feet to drop a smoke flare, which can be a little bit exciting sometimes.
Yeah.
If we're using the camera for a search, then we'll sit at 1,500, 2,000 feet, which is far more comfortable.
Is there any particular terminology to aviation, SAR, that others might not know? As in, do you have certain language for objects, for communicating internally? Is there anything that you have that might be a bit different?
No, I think probably the only thing we do differently to what I heard from the Coast Guard, they sort of, if they find what they're looking for, they sort of say visual, visual, visual. We just sort of say contact, like that. So it's a bit more sort of brief, but it's a very defined word that everybody will understand. So if we see something in the water, we'll sort of shout out, "Go right, right, right! Contact at 10 o'clock."
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Contact. To bring your crew up to sort of spec to go out, what do they have to do? I mean, if I join tomorrow, what do I go through in stages to get out in the air?
Well, you're on a 6-month probation. We need to sort of find out whether you're going to sort of be part of the team and sort of show your willingness to join in with the training and go flying. We have some mandatory safety briefs. So we have a hangar safety brief. We have an aircraft safety brief, just so everybody understands exactly what's involved, where all the fire precautions, all the risks that could be involved in sort of walking around the hangar. You don't want to walk under the wing into the pitot tube, because it'll make a nasty hole in you. And so they understand precisely what they can and what they can't do for their own personal safety. And in the aircraft as well, they're sort of given a very detailed guide over everything that's in the aircraft that relates to safety and the operation of the aircraft.
Yeah.
Uh,
what kind of courses do the people need to do? Is there like a sea survival course or anything to fly over water? How does it?
If those who are enthusiastic enough can do it, we try not to go in the water too much if we can help it. I've done it once, and occasionally we'll go and do a Dunker trip as well. Used to be able to. They might still be there, but I've not done that one myself, and I've got no intention of doing it. But there's some brave souls amongst the crew who've actually been there and done the helicopter crash simulations, and they've all come back saying never again.
Very good. What does a normal training exercise look like for you then?
A training exercise, I mean, some of it could be just geographical awareness because the Channel Islands have got lots of rocks and little islands all over the place. So it's nice to show them on a nice day where the minkies are, or where the ecrahos are, where the paternosters are. And show them the various buoys. They might be said, well, we're going to be searching around the lower heads. So we go and show them all those sorts of places. We try and make it as constructive and as usable for everybody as possible. So the pilot will get his practice at flying search patterns and make sure he can actually fly straight lines and turn the corner properly. The search director gets his opportunity to train with the radar and setting up the navigation software. The guy in the rear left seat will have his opportunity to drop smoke flares. So that, again, that gives the pilot an opportunity to position the aircraft and try and drop the smoke accurately. And the chap in the on the flare station gets the opportunity to practice with the software, which is fairly complex if you're not used to it. But once you're there, there's so many features in it to be able to give you a really good report at the end of it.
How often are people training? What's the kind of requirements to stay valid?
We fly probably once or twice a week. So we keep a cap on the crew of 20, including the pilots. Beyond that, it gets difficult to keep everybody current. So the pilots will go off and do their own individual training as well, because they need this. The kit up the front is so much more advanced than ever used to be. A lot more electronics for them to work with. The rest of the crew tend to go up once or twice in a week for a flight, and then we will have Monday evening sessions in the hangar where we sort of work through one part of the what we do, whether it could be sort of showing them how to use the software, just a brief on what updates there are to the aircraft, talking about searches we've been on and what lessons we could learn from those.
And I think I saw you're on average, is it something like 100 searches a year, or?
No, thankfully no.
Oh, okay. I thought I saw that 60. No, where did I see in a number?
It might have been in the early days when boats used to go out and they didn't have GPSs and bits and bobs like that. Then we might be called out sort of 40 odd times a year.
Okay.
To go for those. In terms of looking for things, probably only about 2% of all call-outs or calls to the Coast Guard are related to boats with in sort of like, I probably call it imminent danger. There might be a man overboard, or they could be drifting onto rocks. There's a lot of calls of good intention.
Yeah.
And there's an awful lot of breakdowns, which we're not necessarily needed for because they know where they are.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's a question in here. I think I can show it on the screen. I don't know if you can read that. I don't know if you know James or not. This question, you have to answer this question without mentioning D4H. So, how does John find it managing crew as a volunteer with the use of technology?
Well, we've got a really good sort of bunch of crew now. We've got some guys who come from some relevant backgrounds. We've got a chap who was on the Coast Guard, and he's moved over to Guernsey to work over here. We've got guys who were with the St. John Inshore Lifeboat, so they've got a lot of that sort of knowledge, the relevant knowledge.
Yeah.
And we've got people who sort of flew tactically in the RAF. So they've got a very good mindset and can pick up all this sort of information very quickly. Very good.
Oh, so that's really fascinating discussion. Is there anything? I've got one last question for you, which is kind of about the future of this and where does it go, and what technology we're going to see. But is there anything else that you think people might be interested in that I've missed?
No. Sorry, caught me on the hop there.
No, that's perfect. Okay. So,
You can cut that bit
for
out.
no, no, absolutely not. So, I'll wrap up with, where does this service go in the future? Is it drones, UAVs? What technology is just unaffordable to make it worthwhile doing this with at the moment? It's going to come down in price.
I know.
What are we gonna see next?
I mean, our service itself cost about £2.7 million for this particular aircraft to get it up and running into the state it is at the moment. I think for the future, I think you're going to probably be looking more and more at satellite technology in the next sort of 10 or 15 years. I think there'll be a lot more satellite searching.
Yeah,
they're using it for oil slick management at the moment. So they just look for the slicks on the sea and then send an aircraft out to it. And I think with the technology on board the boats, with their sort of SARSATs and COMSATs and the sort of communication technology, I think satellites will become much more to the fore.
yeah, that makes sense. I completely agree, and I think it's going to go down an automated route as well, isn't it? Of how do you describe it? Where it'll automatically look for the objects from the satellite rather than even humans processing it.
I'm going to say you still need eyes out of the window on occasion. They're probably one of the most effective tools in a search.
For sure, you can't beat a human at those tasks we're good at.
No.
If people, you mentioned there you're funded by, I hope you enjoyed that chat with you. I did ask John just after this about how do people support the Channel Islands air search service, and he was explaining to us that they have a fantastic fundraising team who do wonderful work every year to raise £100,000+ a year to keep the service running. So that's fantastic, and hope you enjoyed listening in this week. Next week we will be speaking to the makers of SAR Topo, a mapping system, to see how they look for a missing person or any sort of rescue mission using GIS and mapping software to do it. So see you then, and thanks for tuning in.